Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Open. This is an RCQ. This is an invitational qualifier for the Apex Invitational in November. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross Merriam. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
We got one round in the books. We got six more Swiss?
Six more Swiss, three more in the top eight.
Yeah, and players are gathering over in the feature match area, getting ready for round number 2. And we'll be moving over there in just a few minutes after they're nice and ready. But we got a heater of a feature match this round. Some cool decks. Ross, why don't you give us a rundown of what we're going to be watching this round?
Yeah, J.D. Atkins going to be playing with a really cool looking mono blue control deck. This one really built around the strength of Narset Parter Avails, has 4 copies of that Planeswalker from War of the Spark, as well as 4 copies of Days Undoing.
Yeah, well, it's pretty notable that Narset is making a huge resurgence in Modern, specifically because of how it dumpsters the One Ring. And we talked a little bit about the One Ring at the beginning of the day and how powerful it is with all those extra cards. Well, Narset kind of shuts it down. And Days Undoing with Narset is a huge combo that strips your opponent of all the resources, but it also kind of resets the game if you're behind on those resources against someone playing the One Ring. So, cool deal. What else is in this mono blue deck? Tell me about it.
So, to go with all this card draw, we got 4 copies of Subtlety as Early Disruption, Brazen Borrower, that's for the bad matchups, Todd.
Oh, yeah.
If you know that about Brazen Borrower.
That's one you have it just in case.
Yeah, it's for the bad matchups.
It's just Vendilion Click Plus.
Yeah. 3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor. That's our main, big source of card advantage to take over in the long game. Also has 4 copies of Force of Negation, so the full 8 blue pitch spells.
Awesome.
To go with our draw
Love
7s.
it.
I really like that. Yeah, you can just cast a Days Undoing on turn 3, even without a Narset. Draw up a bunch of cards, the turn ends, but then you're going to be able to interact pretty well with your opponent on that following turn. A bunch of cantrips to, find these sort of combo pieces. Narset plus Days Undoing is a really big part of the deck. So 4 Preordain, Recent Unban, 4 Opt. I like having the instant speed one because there's also counter spells. 4 copies of that, and then some other, cheaper counter spells. 1 Spell Snare, 1 Spell Pierce, 2 Stern Scolding.
That's
really good
hot one.
Yeah, another really good one against early griefs. And then 2 copies of Piracy Charm.
Piracy Charm is one that many of you probably don't know what it does.
What are the 3 modes, Todd?
You don't think I... Okay.
I'm pretty
How
sure
much
you
do
do
you want to
know.
bet that I know all 3 modes?
I would be on the side that you know, because I know you've
Yeah.
played a lot with Tom Ross, and Tom Ross put this card in a lot of decks.
Well, primarily we put it into our Infect sideboards, both in Modern and in Legacy, because it was one of the blue cards, or one of the few blue cards that could actually, kill a small creature on the other side. So for 1 blue mana, you get one of the 3 following abilities. Target player discards a card.
That is one of them.
Target creature gets +2, -1, and target creature gains Island Walk.
Until end of turn.
Until end of turn.
Yep.
Now, this card is relatively weak, all things considered. But what it does do is it kills Orcish Bowmasters, which is a huge problem for the deck.
Yep.
It also kills Ragavan, another huge problem for the deck. And that alone is enough. But on top of that, it has one other ability that's relevant with make your opponent discard a card. So it's never dead. And then, the Island Wall thing comes up once in a blue moon. And in this deck, it's never going to come up probably.
You got some Hall of Storm Giants as a heavy hitter.
You
got Island Walk
That's right.
Hall.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
Got him.
But that's the first deck we're going to be taking a look at. Do you have the opponent's deck list at the ready, or do you know what they're playing?
Yeah, so it's Victoria McCoy playing a Jeskai control deck, so sort of old-fashioned control mirror
Is
here.
this a Narset mirror match?
2 copies of Narset in
Wow.
Victoria's main deck. Has a little bit more in the way of creatures. There's 4 Solitude, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 1 Fury, 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's a little more threat dense here, but also has some Teferis, has some Flames of Anor, another good recent printing. Also has counter spells, got some Leyline Bindings. Just a good mix of powerful interactive cards and card advantage. Classic control strategy here. So we are going to gear up for hopefully a long match and a really interesting one, because the Narsets in Victoria's deck are going to be really, really good against the deck that is trying to utilize Narset.
Right. All right. Well, the players are ready in the feature match area, so let's go ahead and head on down there and watch this matchup. Now, all right. This is J.D. Atkins on your left with Mono Blue Control. Victoria McCoy on your right with Jeskai Control. These 2 control decks are going to be long.
Yeah. Now, we don't see a lot of control decks in Modern these days, so if you're not that familiar, with control mirrors, one of the real keys is making land drops. because you fight these counter wars and you need to have a bunch of mana in order to fight them. So the early game here is really going to be about making all of your land drops, making sure you prepare to fight over the key threats in counterspell wars. So Victoria McCoy leads off with Scalding Tarn. Looks like JD Atkins took a mulligan to 5. That is going to be unfortunate because it usually means it's difficult to keep more lands in your hand. But I did notice that he tucked a Spell Pierce as one of the cards. Not sure what else went to the bottom of the deck there. But I don't see a ton of lands in Atkins' opening hand. There's a Force of Negation. There's a Brazen Borrower. Maybe 2 other lands. Looks like he's got one of his non-basics. There's a couple Halls and an Otawara in the list. So not sure which one that is, if it is one of the non-basic lands. But I'm sure we'll see soon.
All right. Victoria, turn 2, just Island Go, the classic with Counterspell at the ready. Here's an opt for JD.
And I've got to say, I appreciate Victoria's choice of Counterspell. I am a fan of the Tempest.
Oh, yeah. She's got good taste.
Yes.
All right, card drawn for Jay. Going to go back his way. Drawn a card. Jason Mind Sculptor in hand. Need some lands, it looks like. No second land drop. The opt missed.
Okay, so it was not a non-basic land in Atkins' hand. He was on a 1-lander with the cantrip, and yeah, this is going to be really difficult if he falls behind.
Yeah, 6-card mulligan, 1-lander with a cantrip. Sometimes you miss and lose. That's how it works.
Yeah. And now, if you're in Victoria McCoy's seat here, this is all about making your land drops and doing nothing.
Right.
You don't want to play spells into potential counter spells and let JD Atkins use his cards. Let him drop to 8 cards and keep discarding hand size. That is effectively card advantage for you. So just be patient, make your land drops. As soon as you run all the land drops, then it's time to start doing things.
Yeah, and we're going to see JD going to discard here, pitching a Days and doing. That one might be able to get him back into it later on, but we got to hit some land drops.
Yeah,
and
he's already got 7 cards in hand. He doesn't need to Days and doing.
All right, 5 mana. What are we going to do? Looks like here's a Fable the Mirror Breaker with Counterspell at the ready, and JD Atkins likely going to do some Force of Negationing.
Yeah, so this will undoubtedly meet the counterspell from McCoy.
Now, this could be a reprieve.
Are we going to reprieve our own Fable?
Nope, looks like we're going to reprieve the Force and allow for another 2-for-1 pitch if JD wants to do it. And with JD just missing a bunch of land drops and a handful of cards, might still be worth.
Yep.
Gonna go for it.
What else do you want to pitch? Probably the other Force of Negation. I don't think you could pitch cast 3 of them, but he disagrees.
Well, Subtlety's another brick, very similar, and Force is much better than Subtlety in this matchup.
Agreed.
All right,
Okay.
land for JD, passing back to Victoria.
Is that another island?
I think it's a basic island. It's a funky-looking one, but I saw some of those in play. They're brand new. I don't know what they're from. Looks like Tron, like the movie. Counterspell.
Now, they look very different, but those are both counterspells.
Yeah, so we got Fable coming down, Counterspell for JD, Counterspell back for Victoria, and now JD can go for another Force here, but that's going to put him all the way down to 1 card left in hand. But what else are you going to do?
He's got Brazen Borrower. That can cleanly answer the Goblin Shaman at least. I'm not that worried about the second mode here since you're down on cards anyway. Then you just have to worry about the reflection on the back end. But JD says, you know what? I don't want to deal with, think about any part of that.
Now, you may be saying, shouldn't that Counterspell be exiled? But JD likely said, I'll force negation targeting your Fable the Mirror Breaker. Let the Counterspells bounce off each other, go to the graveyard. Just depends on how they communicated verbally there.
And there's another opt. So it's Brazen Borrower is the 1 card left behind. That's a counterspell.
Yeah, but the mana advantage here is heavily in favor of Victoria and raw resources. JD used a bunch of pitch counterspells to interact, and now the game is basically at parity, but Victoria has tons of more resources.
Yeah, but a lot of the cards left over in hand for Victoria are poopy removal spells that are not
like
great.
This
in matchup.
Lightning Bolt?
Yeah, I think this Lightning Bolt is getting cast so that Victoria has something to do with the Snapcaster Mage. So I think we might see the once classic play in Modern of Bolt Snap Bolt.
It's been a minute since I've seen Bolt Snap Bolt. If there's not a Snapcaster Mage coming down here, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Yes. But if there is, we'll be very excited.
Marginally excited.
I am a fan of the Bolt Snap Bolt. Oh, yeah.
Oh! Oh, mama!
Upstairs.
Well, this is probably meeting a counterspell from JD, and then Victoria's going to say, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
And
looks
then
like
the backup Snapcaster Mage is going to go after the same play, probably.
has 2 prismatic endings as the other leftovers. So yeah, kind of a pretty weak hand here from Victoria, all considered, but does still have that significant mana advantage, 6 lands to 4.
All right, Victoria going to let it resolve and not go for another Snapcaster, valuing the counterspell that's in the graveyard as well as that reprieve, wanting to use a Snapcaster to get a little more lock value. 5th land for JD. Wants to draw something like Lorien Revealed here so he can get a refresh. Something like Days Undoing is also pretty fine. I think that might be what he drew. No. Narset.
That's a no.
What you got?
Do we want to counterspell this one, or is this, there's not a ton of targets for prismatic ending in Atkins' deck, so maybe you just give up the 2-for-1? Victoria says no dice.
No, thank you. All right.
Okay.
See if JD has a response here. I see Brazen Borrower. There's Reprieve.
Well, I'm okay with a reprieve. You're a little light on cards. Let's just stall this Narset and dig a little deeper.
Okay. Gonna go back Victoria's way. Snapcaster Mage in play. Some pressure.
Yeah, we got a clock now. We're ready.
2 damage coming across.
We're the beatdown.
The Brazen Borrower Petty Theft combo doesn't look so good against Snapcaster Mage. Oh, how the times have changed. Narset comes down again.
I think there's another snap in hand.
Yeah, nice pickup from Victoria here.
They travel in packs.
Big raid from Young Dingo! Special guest Young Dingo from last event. Thank you so much for that, my friend. We're looking forward to seeing you in October. He's going to be a part not only of our October 14th Magic Weekend, but also of our Lost Boys Invitational for Lorcana on October the 20th weekend. Big shout out to Dingo. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome, Raiders. We are in round 2 here of the Modern 5K and Apex Invitational Qualifier and regional or destination RCQ.
All right, here comes an attack. Victoria McCoy going to jam in one Snapcaster at the Narset. The other Snapcaster goes face. And here's Petty Theft going to be bouncing Snapcaster Mage. You got to be okay with this if you're Victoria, because you get to go hold up Counterspell again. You got Lightning Bolt at the ready. You got all sorts of goodies here.
I will take as many Snapcasters as you want to give me when I've got 8 lands in play. And
all right.
It would have been much better for JD if Petty Theft were able to bounce his own permanents, but unfortunately, that is not legal.
All right. Snapcaster back in hand. Petty Theft, Brazen Borrower off to the side in the Adventure Realm. Looks like it's in play, tapped and attacking, but it's not, I swear. Here's all the Storm Giants. We got 2 Days Undoing in hand if I'm JD Atkins. I'm just firing it off. I am so low on resources. We've caught back up on mana. Let's go for a reset. And yeah. Victoria kind of has to stop it, I think.
Oh, yeah. You can't let this resolve with JD on so few cards and you having so many. This is effectively like a draw 4.
New sub from Simic 2000. Thank you so much. It's actually Chemist backwards. I didn't know that for a while. I thought it was just a weird way he was spelling Simic from back in the day.
Yeah.
Been a sub of mine for a long time. Appreciate the sub.
Brazen Bar are really cool with these draw 7s too. It's a card that you can play early on the Petty Theft side, put the card back in their hand, it goes into your exile zone, then you reset everything with Days Undoing. I like it.
All right, Snap Counterspell does hit the Days Undoing. We're going to jam for 4. Bolt goes face. JD down to 6. Victoria still with the grip full. Let's see if she has an answer to a second Days Undoing. JD going to play land number 7. Has definitely caught up from the early land glut.
But now he's just behind on cards and behind on life and behind on the board. Victoria's hand, once again, not great. A lot of spare removal spells in there. I think there's, the other Bolt. There's a Leyline Binding. There's a Solitude. At least Solitude is a threat.
We're going to fire up the Hall of Storm Giants coming across for 7. And we're going to Solitude and pay? Or we're going to take 7.
I think Victoria's just saying, I'll take 7 and play the Solitude and kill you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes, just the classic explaining how you're dead.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, JD agrees. Yes, I am dead.
This is the Splinter Twin move. You just show them they're dead, and then they concede.
We're playing a control mirror. Let's get through this. So that was a quick game 1.
It was. Just over 10 minutes for game number 1, and these players are playing hot and heavy and fast. Now, as these players grapple for their sideboards, Ross, why don't you tell us how they're going to be sideboarding with your expert analysis?
Well, one of the advantages of playing a rogue deck like JD is that your opponents are usually underprepared to sideboard against
Oh,
you.
yeah.
And that's what it looks like is the case for
No
Victoria.
Pyroblast on the sideboard?
No, I see 3 Sanctifier in Vec, 2 Containment Priest, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Crumble to Dust, 1 Alpine Moon, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Test of Talents, 1 Dovin's Veto. I love the 3 extra counter spells, but there's a lot of removal in this main deck that I'd like to get out. 4 Leyline Binding, 2 Prismatic Ending, 3 Lightning Bolt. Even the Solitudes are fine because they have Flash, but the Fury isn't great. Maybe you want to keep in Fury for Narset. It'll be, and Leyline Binding answers Narset, so that one probably stays in, but I think it might just be, 3 counter spells in and a couple endings and bolts out. You could bring in the Containment Priests if you want to get a little bit aggressive, just as a flash 2/2.
Yeah. Now, I have a quick question for you, Ross. This is going to stretch your game knowledge. What is the first creature that comes to your mind when I say protection from blue? I know that there's none in the sideboard here for Victoria, but that ideally you would have some hammer card like that, and protection from blue is like an old one.
I
right?
would say Goblin Pile Driver.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I actually forgot that one had it. I was gonna say Scragnoth. Remember Scragnoth?
I do remember Scragnoth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could also see Victoria bringing in Alpine Moon or Crumble to Dust if you're worried about Haul. It might be better than a weak removal spell, just answering
Sure.
those key creature lands.
Sure.
So we'll see how Victoria decides to sideboard. Looking over at JD's, we got 3 Invasive Surgery, 2 Dismember, 2 Dress Down, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Stern Scolding, a Ceremonious Rejection, an Echoing Truth, an Engineered Explosives, and a Pithing Needle. I kind of like the Stern Scoldings just because they counter Snapcaster Mage so efficiently. Can hit a Solitude too. Definitely like the Mystical Disputes. Not really a big fan of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Mystical Dispute is a great anti-control measure, though. That card is messed up against things like Snapcaster Mage. They really throw you for a loop.
But, JD's deck, I think, is better set up to play these control mirrors, less removal in the main,
Right.
so doesn't need as heavy sideboarding. It's just a question of whether he can, keep 7 and make land drops.
All right, well, players here have drawn their openers. Looks like J.D. Atkins is considering a mulligan, another light land opener, but it looks like Preordain might solve those issues.
Preordain a little bit better than Opted digging towards those extra lands.
Sure is. Top 2, take a peek. Take a look in a book.
Reading Rainbow.
I don't think either of these are lands. Probably going to both go on bottom and draw a card. It's the power of Preordain. Digs for lands. Missed. Days Undoing, not a land. I think there's another island over there, though. Maybe 2 islands. We'll see.
All right. Checking out Victoria's hand. Oh, there's a Scalding Tarn. I think I see a couple other lands. I saw a Reprieve for sure.
All right, back JD's way. Land number 2.
I think there's a Fable in there as well.
Going back Victoria's way. We're going to fetch in a turn. Likely going to go get one of those Triomes. These lands have totally reshaped the entire mana base in Modern, allowing for things like Leyline Binding to be played in mass.
Yeah, you see a lot of the 4 and 5 color decks playing several Triomes, especially with Binding, as you said. The 3 color decks, they usually just have one. I imagine with Binding, Victoria probably has a second.
Yeah, you always want to be able to make Leyline Binding cost 1, so there's often like a blue, green, black Triome in the, blue-white deck.
Yeah, so this is a tapped island,
Yeah. All right, Sulphur Falls to pick up. You don't see Sulphur Falls every day. Victoria going to pass back. Both players just hitting their land drops.
Yeah, this is a nice blast from the past match.
Yeah, just 2 players not really doing a whole lot. Hitting their land drops.
Yeah.
Casting Jace the Mind Sculptor. What's not to love?
If one of them had blast from the past, it would be really good.
I need to know what the writing says on this Jace the Mind Sculptor, because I know that that's one of the promos from the Pro Tour. It's a nice looking Jace. It looked like I said Barge.
JD just flexing here. The sweet promo Jace.
Yep. Now we actually have a big size promo Jace on the prize wall this weekend. Our prize wall is stocked with some awesome swag, including those oversized cards and foil sheets.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
We got a 250 person seating capacity here, tons of side events, command zone going on all weekend, plenty of prize wall tickets to be given out.
Yep. And while we are doing a $5,000 open today, we'll be doing a $2,000 Pioneer Open tomorrow. That will also be an invitational qualifier for the Apex Invitational in November, as well as a regional championship qualifier for the next season.
Victoria has one of her Narsets,
Are you
so
sure that's a Narset? Are
I
you
assume.
sure? I assume as well, but it just looks funky. It looks like a little anime. It looks like Coraline, kind of. All right.
Yeah.
This promo Narset Parterville's, it's from something.
Gonna meet
No one
a
knows what.
subtlety pitching Days Undoing.
Okay. And now Narset's going to go back on top. You have to imagine Narset's pretty good in these card draw mirrors.
Yeah, if Victoria has a fifth land and a counterspell to back it up, it could be very problematic for JD, though he does have a Brazen Borrower that can attack down a Narset.
Interestingly enough, did not cast Jace the Mind Sculptor on a relatively safe looking board. Only planes up for Victoria.
Yeah, maybe really worried about the Narset wants to get the Borrower down, but you could have played Jace while Victoria was tapped low, drawn some cards on this turn. Next turn, if the Narset's in play, obviously you don't want to activate the Brainstorm, but you
Right.
could Petty Theft it first, the Narset, then draw cards, and then have the Brazen Borrower to attack the Narset.
All right, here comes 3 mana. Here comes Narset, Parterville's. We'll see if JD wants to respond. We got Subtlety at the ready, Opt, Petty Theft, Brazen Bar, and Jace the Mind Sculptor in hand. We're going to lead with an Opt. Hardcast, Subtlety coming, be my guess. A Day's Undoing. That one looks pretty bad in the face of an opposing Narset.
Yeah, and JD with these pitch spells is a little bit low on cards again, so normally that Days Undoing would be nice here, but the Narset really throwing a wrench into his plans.
I will see if Victoria has a response here. It looks like a reprieve, but that might be a prismatic ending, and if that's the case, Subtlety going to be taking care of the Narset for another turn. Okay.
It goes to the top of the deck, and now we have a 3/3 on the battlefield ready to attack it when it comes down next turn. So things looking pretty good for JD.
Okay, Subtlety going to be chunking in for 3 damage, but we're going to start with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Does Victoria have an answer? No. The big brainstorm coming. We'll see. Maybe a tick up to 5 to protect from Lightning Bolt.
Looks like a Leyline Binding in Victoria's hands. We might see that happen in response to the Brainstorm.
Ooh, we're going to +2 on the Jace. Put that Narset from the top of
yeah.
the deck to the bottom of the deck, and now we don't have to worry about that one too much. Back Victoria's way after an attack for 3.
Okay, I love the Fate Seal on the Jace there. Love that +2.
All right. Leyline Binding likely going to come down here to knock off the Jace. Decides not to do it just yet. Going to draw for turn.
Maybe trying to says I can waste the 1 mana. What if I draw a counterspell to protect it? That could be a lot better.
Spell Pierce also potentially an issue. These players don't know each other's deck lists, and I think there actually are Spell Pierces in JD's Atkins list in some capacity.
Yeah, I think he's got 1 or 2. So, yeah, smart play and a patient play from Victoria there.
All right, here's Fable the Mirror Breaker. We'll see if JD has a response. No. We're going to put a counter on it, make it 2/2.
Looks like 1 Pierce in JD Atkins' list. So,
looks like we're going to go for a Leyline Binding. Does this resolve? If it does, JD does have one answer with the Brazen Borrower, but it's only temporary. And since Leyline Binding is instant, Victoria could play it in a number of different spots. Says maybe not the best time to play this. You'd want to do it on your own turn so you get to brainstorm before Victoria can resolve it again.
Yeah, that is, this is sort of a lesson. Victoria, patient with her instant speed effect there with the Leyline Binding. JD Atkins, not patient, just, uses the 2 mana on the end step. You gotta, sometimes deviate from those heuristics. You don't want to end step every single instant. Sometimes you gotta main phase them.
Yeah. All right, JD Atkins way draws a card for turn. Looks like another island. Has Subtlety at the ready, can be aggressive. The other card looks like either Stern Scolding or Snapcaster Mage. I don't think he has Snapcaster Mage in his deck, so I think it's just Stern Scolding.
I agree.
And that can stop Solitude and a couple other creatures from Victoria's side, including Snapcaster Mage. Chapter 2 Fable ticks up.
It's not going to do much against Fable the Mirror Breaker, though.
Draw 2. Finds a Mystic Gate and a Flame of Anor. No Wizards in play just yet, but could maybe find one with Snapcaster Mage. Flame of Anor, a heater out of the Lord of the Rings set, and looks like it could be pretty good here. Gonna cast Brazen Borrower.
Even just as a draw 2 is pretty solid.
Now, Victoria's life total is getting a little low, so we might see it deal 5 damage here to a creature, killing Subtlety or the Brazen Bar. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Just get in the tank here. Try to figure out how you want to use your spell.
All right, I didn't see target, so we're going to draw 2 cards. We're going to see if we have... Oh, finds Counterspell, and this is still with Brazen Bar on the stack. More than likely. It's always about how things are communicated. There's always a chance Victoria said that resolves, but looks like it's still on the stack, so we're going to go for Counterspell on the Brazen Borrower.
Okay. Keep the pressure off. Can generate some more card advantage with the second Fable. Maybe get to the, the fabled double reflection combo.
All right, main phase opt. We're going to go digging, looking for another Jace.
That's an island. Ship it to the bottom.
Draw. And another opt. Let's fire it off.
Another one.
I think I'm going to memorize the monologue from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the one with the old one.
Yeah, the only one.
Where okay, but the one where he starts the boats in the tunnel, right, and it's going faster and faster. And I want people when they're playing cantrips, I want to start doing that as my bit, right? Just got to keep churning, keep looking, keep
JD
digging.
decides to keep a Narset off that second opt, has the subtlety to protect it from the Goblin Shaman's attacks, and now we can generate some card advantage of our own.
All right, Narset gonna find Force Negation. Now you did see a Brazen Borrower in there, and now the adventure part of that card is an instant. Narset cannot grab it because while the card is in any zone other than on the stack casting the Petty Theft, it is Brazen Borrower.
But the Force of Negation is a nice pickup, has that Stern Scolding, so you generally cover all your bases. If it's a Snapcaster or a Solitude for Victoria, you Scolding it. If it's a non-creature, you can Force of Negation it.
All right, down to 10 is Victoria from the Subtlety attack. We're going to transform Fable the Mirrorbreaker into Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Victoria.
Interesting that JD got aggressive with the Subtlety that turn because it's going to cost him a card. Now the Goblin Shaman gets to freely attack the Narset down to 1. You miss out on the activation.
All right, we're going to tap 3. We're going to play another Fable the Mirrorbreaker. It's going to generate a lot of pressure for JD. I'm assuming that he's going to go for the Force of Negation here, pitching that Stern Scolding. And we'll see if Victoria has a response. No, it is exiled. Empty-handed is JD Atkins, looking for something like Dazen doing to draw 7 to get back into the game via resources, but
Dazen doing would be nice.
But is ahead on board. Is that a Gaia Reach Sanitarium?
It would be a solid one. You can Gaia Reach on the upkeep. Victoria will have to loot, and then the Narset will stop her normal draw step for the turn.
Yep. All right, we'll see if JD wants to keep attacking to protect or try to protect the Narset. The Fable flipped, copying the Goblin token means that the Narset is basically dead.
Yeah, you would force Victoria to lose her Goblin token to deal with it, though, if you stay back, so... Oh, but there's a Solitude.
That's a nice pickup. That one can take care of the Subtlety. And now we're going to have...
Oh, JD misses the opportunity there to Gaia Reach before the Narset leaves the battlefield.
Unfortunate. That is one of the most powerful parts of Gaia Reach Sanitarium in the Narset decks, is forcing your opponent essentially to just discard a card because they don't get to loot. All right, here's Solitude. This is going to come down and eat Subtlety. JD is empty-handed, so looting for himself wouldn't have done too much other than obviously work with the Narset. So
yeah, and now Victoria really in the driver's seat, has several creatures on the battlefield, a couple cards left behind, but JD on nothing.
Yeah, you're really just seeing Mono Blue's limitations as far as interaction are concerned are very spell-based, and the build for JD is heavily reliant on pitch counterspells like Subtlety and Force Negation, often leaving him very low on raw resources in hand, where Victoria is very good at generating, 2-for-1s as well as trading 1-for-1 all the time.
Yeah, I think JD, this Mono Blue deck seems like it's more built to beat up on non-counterspell decks.
All right, here's an attack for 8. Gaining 6 in the process. Victoria McCoy is running riot over this race.
And, JD can't really draw things like Subtleties to try to just trade because Reflection plus Solitude is just this engine of creature removal. And I think Victoria found a counter spell too. So
I see Flusterstorm as well. It's going to be very hard for JD to resolve anything through Counterspell Flusterstorm.
yeah, I think this game is going to end rather quickly.
Hall of Storm
Ooh.
Giants is the play for JD.
Hall is actually an interesting one. Gets by the counter spell. Once JD untaps, he
Well,
can
life totals are way off. Victoria gained 6 life last turn. Should be up to about 13. Our spotter must have missed it. We'll get life totals updated for you in just a moment.
Narset meets the counter spell from Victoria. And do we have enough to go wide around the hall? Not sure exactly where JD's life total is at this point.
That should be another 6 up to 19 if I'm not mistaken. For Victoria. JD looks like down to 7. All right,
Okay.
back. Hall of Storm Giants got a lot of uphill battling to do. Doesn't look like it's going to do it. Here's an island.
7 is exactly good enough because we can make a copy of a Solitude, basically make 2 Solitudes on the end step and then on Victoria's own main phase. And then, one of them gets eaten by the Hall and the other 2 get through along with the Goblin Shaman for 8.
All right, in a turn, we're going to make another Solitude. Here comes the overwhelming force from Victoria's side. See if JD wants to activate the Gyre Sanitarium to look for something. We are not.
I think there's Leyline Binding isn't going to do it.
I mean, it's still an attack for 8. So
okay.
instead of going for the lethal effect, Victoria is just going to go to eat the Hall of Storm Giants, just in case maybe there's some bounce effect or something like that.
Yeah.
Could have maybe ruined plans, but
just playing it safe. JD's going to go up to 14 here, take 8 down to 6.
yeah,
so you still have lethal next turn.
Same position that we were last turn, basically.
Yeah. So you give JD one more turn, but play it a little safer. I think the Fury's in hand for Victoria too, so even has more threats if she wants to deploy that.
All right, back JD's way. Island only in hand. No more Hall of the Storm Giants to attack or block. Victoria all the way up to 25, and I believe it's another land. We're going to loot with the Gyre Sanitarium. Victoria going to discard a land. JD going to discard a land as well. 3 mana. That's a Narset.
And at this point, you don't even really care about the Narset. It doesn't do anything to protect JD. It's just a sort of mana sink.
Top 4 coming. Force of Negation, some counterspells and opts. An island. It's not going to be enough. And we're going to have Victoria McCoy taking down this match 2-0 here against this cool mono blue control deck from JD Atkins. But honestly, just seeing some old school blue magic looks pretty fun and good if you ask me.
Yeah, I love it. Love casting me some opts and some bolt snap bolts.
All right, all the copies are going to target opt. We're going to say go. Garbage time. There's 10 seconds left on the clock. I'm going to shoot a 3-pointer.
Victoria tells JD he might not be Superman, but she is.
All right, we're going to attack with a bunch. Clean it up. Hurry it up. Speed it up.
And
JD milking
swoosh.
that clock. Attack you. All right. Victoria McCoy takes that down 2-0 with Jeskai control. Looking pretty good, honestly.